All right. Hey, my name's Shaun. I'm the youth pastor here at this church, which means I'm in charge of a few things. If you don't know, I'm in charge of kids ministry that meets right now on Sundays over there in our kids ministry space. I run a college group. We'll go there. College group Monday nights for college age, and we have a youth group junior high through high school that meets on Wednesdays. That's everything I do. I love my job. I would not change anything about it, anything about my life. There's a lot of new faces, I feel like, since last time I spoke, so I wanted to share a little bit about me. I grew up in LA my whole life, went to college out there, to a college in called Life Pacific College. They actually just changed to university. That's cool, they did that after I left. And then got my degree in biblical studies with a piece of paper that says I know what I'm doing, so that's cool. Stole that joke from Scott Spidell. I love it here and I love my job. I've been here for just over 16 months, which is crazy how time has flown that I've been here for that long. And really, I have an observation I wanted to share with you guys before we get started. Last time I spoke a few months ago, we talked about godly wisdom versus earthly wisdom. And today we're launching a new series going through Proverbs, also talking about wisdom. And so my observation is a certain pastor likes to make youth pastor jokes when he's up here. And so I have the mic now. And just an observation, not saying anything, but looks like somebody's giving all the wisdom sermons to the youth pastor. I'm not implying I'm the most wise pastor here, just an observation that somebody's giving the youth pastor all the wisdom sermons. So interpret that how you will. All right, I was waiting for that moment. Let's go. All right, so introduction, Proverbs. We're launching a new series for 2 months. Today we're going to talk about Proverbs 1, verses 1 through 7, and I'm so excited for what this is like, and it makes you think, how should we be reading this book of Proverbs? We should approach it with the realization that God is giving an insight into what life looks like when we fully submit to Him, when we fully let God control our lives, inviting us to reorient everything that we are around Him and His purpose instead of our purpose. Jesus describes the church as the salt of the earth and the light of the world. And see, according to Jesus, the church is a city set on top of a hill. And the book of Proverbs is just a blueprint to see what that city is supposed to look like, to accurately describe what it looks like for us to live as salt of the earth and light of the world, and to have this powerful book be preached. I want to start off by reading those verses, and then, let's just do that. The proverb, so in verse 1, it will be on the screen, or you can follow along in the Bibles in the pews. We'll be in this section of verses the whole time. The Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, for gaining wisdom and instruction, for understanding words of insight, for receiving instruction in prudent behavior, doing what is right and just and fair, for giving prudence to those who are simple, knowledge and discretion to the young. Let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance, for understanding proverbs and parables, the sayings and the riddles of the wise. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. The purpose of this book, Proverbs, is to make us truly wise. And wisdom is just a journey that we're invited in to grow closer to God's intention of how we are truly to live. These first verses 2 through 6 is simply talking about, it's kind of that blueprint we were talking about, the Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. Those Proverbs are for all those things, gaining wisdom and instruction, receiving instruction in prudent behavior, those lists. And then it ends with the line, Solomon is known as the wisest man to walk the earth. And he says this phrase to launch this book, this wisdom book. It says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. And so, this fear of the Lord concept is what we're going to talk about today. And it's a beautiful message that I can't wait for. You see, it's an important concept. If you look, the fear of the Lord is actually in the book of Proverbs. There's 31. It's in 15 of them. The fear of the Lord as a concept. And in 3 of those 15, it's in there multiple times. And so it seems like this fear of the Lord is the overarching theme of this whole book. This phrase is the foundation for all spiritual knowledge and wisdom. Without this concept, without having the fear of the Lord, you do not have true knowledge or wisdom. That's what Solomon is saying. So with this twofold purpose, remember, there's 2 purposes that this book is accomplishing. To produce the skill of godly living, to produce the skill of godly living by wisdom and instruction, and to develop discernment. And so to start, I think I wanted to try and have a healthy understanding of this word fear. The fear of the Lord, I believe in the last few decades, or I would say all of our lifetimes, has been preached in 2 main ways, 2 cultures that have preached it. And I wanted to talk about those. I think this concept, I think the recent cultures have messed up this concept a little bit. I'll explain why. See, I think this happens more than Christians like to admit. We see a concept of something that the Bible teaches, and we just step over it because it's awkward to talk about, or because it makes us nervous, or because we don't like it, and so we shove it off into the corner and we don't talk about it. I think the fear of the Lord, that's happened to this concept. And so one culture, the first being a hellfire and brimstone, because I feel like how this concept has been preached. See, fear of the Lord, it's like this. Fear of the Lord, because if you don't, you're going to hell. Turn towards Him or else you will be destroyed. Fear Him. And so I think they touch on that fear aspect, which I think is accurate, but they miss a total point that I think just isn't right. And the second one is the way that the fear of the Lord has been taught, which I feel like is exactly how I've heard it my whole life. Every time I think back, I went through Christian schooling my whole life. I can't even count how many sermons I've heard. But every time a pastor has touched on the fear of the Lord, it's all over the scriptures. It's in there hundreds of times. So it happens whenever a preacher that I've heard of has said the fear of the Lord, the pastor goes, now hang on. Let me explain. It's not fear. It's more of a respect, which is true. It is a respect. There's a respect atmosphere to this word fear. But I feel like that misses a point also. See, the thing is, when I look at the Bible, and when I read stories of when people have interacted with God's presence or God Himself, they seem pretty terrified. They have an instant and huge reaction of fear. And it's hard to miss. It's hard to describe that as anything other than it is. So that makes me think, have any of you really had that instant and huge reaction of fear? One time in high school and college, I went to a Christian camp called Hume Lake. I have a picture of it. It's absolutely beautiful. There it is. This is where I went to camp growing up. And the thing about this lake is there's this rock about halfway through on the right. You can kind of see it, but it's called Jumping Rock. Creative name. We jump off it into the lake. And so that's where my church and my small group really like to hang out. That's where we always were. Well, one day, me and my friends were looking, and we were looking across this way, and decided, that doesn't look too far. Let's try to swim across and see what happens. And so we did. Thing is, I'm not a bad swimmer. I'm not a good swimmer either. So I think as I was swimming with friends who were in water polo. It makes sense why they wanted to do it. And I was feeling great. I was really starting to feel like I could do it. I saw the distance, I was good, but then this thing started happening. If you don't know, when you swim, your arms start to get tired. And then they start to get heavier and heavier. And I start to freak out a little bit because I see, I look at the distance and I realize I'm not going to make it. I do not have enough energy inside of me to swim the rest of this lake. And I start to try to reach for a log to stand on, because there's like logs at the bottom of Hume Lake. but I'm 5'3" on like a really good day, so that wasn't gonna happen. I couldn't reach, went under a little bit, scary. You know, I'm tired, I'm burnt out. I keep swimming, but I'm pretty much doggy paddling at this point. And I really start to get afraid, and it hits me. Like, am I gonna become one of these statistics of like, oh, 3 people died at Cube Lake this year? And I always wondered how. That's how. College guy tries to swim across because he thinks he can do it, and it doesn't work out. But see, that fear, have any of you ever had that instant and huge reaction of fear in your life? Moments that just terrify you? And so see, I think there's this word fear in this English language that when we hear the word fear, we think of those moments. Times where we're almost drowned in Hume Lake, or times that we're fearful. But biblical fear is a little different. And so I wanted to look at 2 examples of biblical fear. The first one being in Isaiah 6. Isaiah has a vision of God, and Isaiah says this in verse 5, "Woe to me, I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips. And my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty." You don't say, "Woe to me, I am ruined," unless you're afraid. That seems a lot like fear to me. And so that's where I think the respect culture misses it, and there Hellfire Brimstone gets it. But then if it was Hellfire Brimstone, they'd say, "Oh, you're destroyed." He admits it, he had unclean lips, he lived among people with unclean lips, boom, you're done. And I think that misses the point. He says those things, and they miss. Hellfire Brimstone preaches that. The respect preaches that you don't have fear, that looks like fear. So what do? See, they miss what happens next in the story. See, God actually says to Isaiah, "Hey, everything's going to be okay." What happens next is he says that, it's fine. I'm going to take one of my angels. They're going to come to you with a burning coal, put it on your lips. They will atone for your sins. I forgive you. That's the message that both, I think, miss, is that there's that element of grace. God doesn't destroy Isaiah, even though he fully admits to being in the wrong. See, God is an angry God and a jealous God, but grace and mercy is a huge part of the story that you just can't exclude. And that's where that culture missed it. If you don't believe me just yet, here's one more. In Gideon in Judges 6:22-23, it says, "Gideon realized that it was the angel of the Lord. He exclaimed, 'Ah, sovereign Lord, I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face.' But the Lord said to him, 'Peace, do not be afraid. You are not going to die.'" God assured him that you're not going to die, which means he was probably afraid of dying. Again, that fear is present. So I'm pulling out these 2 meanings. Fear is present. He was afraid of dying when he encountered God. There's this fear element that you can't skip over. You can't ignore it. It's there. That's where cultures missed it. They left out grace, and then they try to skip over fear. Those are the 2 points that I think happens. So a little bit more about this respect culture is, I think when you solely focus on respect, you try and skip over that fear aspect. There's a couple of things that happen, but one thing that happens is I think it builds an arrogance that you can do whatever you want. If we're really honest with ourselves, that's what it does. Our culture decided they didn't like the God of the Old Testament. It was too weird or afraid of them. And so God destroyed people. He did it. It happened. He destroyed nations. It's in the Bible. You can't skip over it. You can't ignore it. We have to acknowledge it. And see, but this culture, our culture has decided that they want a more manageable God. They want a God that they can control. They want a God that they can question. They want a God that they can tell what they're going to do instead of saying, "God, what should I do?" See, this culture allows you to love sin and keep it as a little pet in your life, but say, "Oh, no, it's okay. I'm just going to keep this here and do whatever I want. Oh, God, I respect you, but I'm going to do whatever I want." There's got to be that element of fear. See, in Proverbs 8:13, it says, "To fear the Lord is to hate evil." We should be hating evil more than we love it. In Isaiah 44, God says this when he describes himself. See, this is what we have to acknowledge in verses 6-8. It says, "This is what the Lord says, Israel's King and Redeemer, the Lord Almighty. I am the first and I am the last. Apart from me, there is no God. Who then is like me? Let him proclaim it. Let him declare and lay out before me what has happened since I established my ancient people, and what is yet to come. Yes, let him foretell what will come. Do not tremble, do not be afraid. Did I not proclaim this and foretell it long ago? You are my witnesses. Is there any God beside me? No, there is no other rock. I know not one. And see, this is how God describes himself. This is how he talks about himself. This is our God. This is who we worship. See, but sometimes churches get embarrassed by how powerful God is and how boldly he speaks about himself. And so they try to water it down and they water down the gospel to be relevant. The world likes to be relevant. Every business that is created, their primary goal is how to stay relevant. And churches fall into that trap of how to do that. They limit this word fear to only respect, which enables Christians to say that they're their own God. That's what happens. Limiting this, they make the rules. They've done this so much. I've heard this line a lot. Sorry if this comes off as attacking you, but it's true. I've heard this phrase is, God and I have an understanding. As long as I don't hurt myself or anybody else, then all is good. Have you heard that before? I've heard it a lot. And I think that's the trap that happens when we see this word fear, we treat it solely as respect, which is a good aspect of it, but when you lose the fear, you become your own God. You think you can make the rules. And see, God asked us there in Isaiah, is there any God besides me? He says, no, I know not one. We are not our own gods. And I think this is what happens. We have to understand this word fear, like I mentioned. The word in Hebrew is, I'm going to try and pronounce it. My professor, Mr. Music, would be so disappointed. Yirah is what it's pronounced as. This word fear that is in that text. And when they translate it over into the English, something gets missed in translation. We don't have a word in the English language that perfectly fits Yirah. We don't. And so they translated it as fear. But like we said, the way we've been taught about the English culture, the way we all have grown up, we're taught that this word fear means a certain thing. Then we read it in the Bible and we think we know what it means. But there's a meaning that gets missed. And so Yirah, there's a couple things it means. It means respect, reverence, awe, and fear. Those are just the main four that most scholars agree upon. See, but it's all those words all at the same time. Legitimate fear mixed with the respect and reverence of his deity with an awe so true that you can't believe what you are experiencing. All those words together at the same time, a fear, a respect, a reverence, and awe, all going on at the same time and feeling it. See, if all you have is respect, it doesn't give justice to the gravity of the word. If all you have is fear, it implies an unhealthy dread. In the historic text, Yirah is seen in its true form as a positive virtue that encourages us and leads us to right behavior and good results with God. That's what this word Yirah means. All those words, all of that happening, all at the same time. Not just fear, not just respect. All of it. It's a beautiful word. And see, so that's a healthy understanding of this word fear. Next, we have to talk about what comes right after that, a healthy understanding of this word beginning. In Proverbs 1:7, it says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. I keep messing that word up. Adam and Eve. I want to look back at the beginning of everything. You can't think of the word beginning somewhere else and not think about the Garden of Eden. See, Adam and Eve chose to ignore divine instruction to not eat from the tree of what? The tree of knowledge and wisdom and good. The tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's what it is. The tree of knowledge or wisdom of good and evil. They had divine instruction to not eat from it. But with the temptation of the serpent and foolish wisdom or folly wisdom, Adam and Eve replaced that divine instruction with their own assertion of what is right and what is wrong. Their own knowledge. They become their own gods. See, this word beginning is defined in this biblical word as foundation, first, and even source. See, the beginning of all knowledge and wisdom, everything, as a whole, begins with the fear of the Lord. Without the fear of the Lord, there is no understanding of anything. There isn't. And so you have to acknowledge that square one of living life with wisdom and having a meaningful life is an understanding of the fear of the Lord in your life. See, Proverbs is asserting that without God in the picture, you won't understand it at all. Wisdom begins with an acknowledgement that God is the center of the universe, not humans. God is God, not humans. I think that's what this culture has tricked us into believing, that we can become our own God, that we can make the rules. We decide what path we take in life, which is just not what this concept teaches. See, it says in Proverbs 3:7, do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. You know, I'm guilty of it too. I think I know what's best. All inherently believe that I know what's best unless somebody proves me wrong, which has never gotten me in trouble with my wife, ever. But I just had to lighten the mood. You see, but that's this concept is, you see, we think we are wise. We think we have all the answers on our own. But it says it right there, don't be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun that evil. To truly fear the Lord, you have to stand in a subservient position to Him. To acknowledge your dependence on Him. We do not know better than God does. Listen to this part. You do not have a special deal with God. What do I mean? You do not have a special deal with God that allows you to do whatever you want for 6 days and 22 hours, and then come here for the 2 hours of the week and act like you can put a mask on and act like that's Christianity. And act like that's a relationship with God. To do whatever you want for 6 days and 22 hours, and then come here for 2 hours and say, oh God, I'm yours. It doesn't work that way. That's not the fear of the Lord. That's respect culture. That's acting like you're your own God. I constantly this week thought of ways to try to describe this concept. This is the best I came up with. And I just need you all to agree on one thing for me. That Michael Jordan is the best basketball player to ever live. If you disagree, that's okay. Some of you don't believe that truth, and that's okay. The door is right there. Just kidding, but 6-0 is pretty powerful. Okay, so, Michael Jordan. If you don't agree he's the best, you can acknowledge he's one of the best. If he's not number one, he's number 2. Okay? If you don't know who he is, he's the best basketball player to ever live. So this is what it means. See, if you played basketball against Michael Jordan, you'd fear him. You would. He'd stick his tongue out when he's coming at you, and you'd be afraid. That's what it would be. But so, if you were to play basketball, and he was against you, wouldn't you so much rather to have Michael Jordan on your team to play? You'd rather be on Michael Jordan's team instead of playing against him in basketball. If you don't think that, then don't play basketball. But that's what you'd rather have him on your team, and see, that's what fearing the Lord does. You fear the Lord, and it brings God on your team. All that power, all that wisdom, all that deity is now on your team. He's now playing with you. That's what fearing the Lord does. Now that God is on our team, we are filled with that power and can stand up to this sin and this concept of trying to be our own gods. We can stand up to that with His help. Fearing the Lord brings us away from sin and toward God. Without this fear and acknowledgement that God's power to overcome sin, we can't do it on our own. You have to have fear of the Lord. Dallas Willard says this, great author. We don't believe in something by merely saying we believe it, or even when we believe that we believe it. We believe something when we act as if it were true. Act as if you fear the Lord. It's the beginning of wisdom. It's the beginning of life. It's the beginning of your relationship with God. If you don't fear the Lord, nothing else comes into place. Nothing else matters. And see, stop being that culture that overlooks what the Bible teaches because it isn't relevant to the world. Have you ever just stopped to think about what this means? Like really dwell on the fear of the Lord. Every time I've tried to do it with Sasha, bless her heart, she listens to me so much when I'm preparing sermons. It's just constantly talking about it all week. Every time I've tried, I've gotten too emotional. But this is what's been in my head all week, and this is how I feel like this is the most important sermon I've ever preached. This is how I feel about this concept. And see, who am I? I'm 24, youth pastor. But see, maybe my whole life has been preparing me up to this moment for this message today. That's what God does. See, maybe He's prepared everything that I've gone through in my life, has prepared me to preach this concept. And I think this is what God does. See, that's not what God has only prepared. See, maybe God has, He has organized all of you here also. You are here for a reason. God did not only prepare me to be here, but everything you've gone through in your entire life, maybe God has caused all of that to happen to bring you here to this church today to hear about the fear of the Lord. Have you ever thought about what God can do? Every time I try to list it, I get emotional. Everything that happens in this world, everything that you go through, God does. God indeed. And then we stand here and we try and act like we know better than Him. That we organize everything. God organizes everything. You are all here today because of God. And see, you have to acknowledge that. See, and it's not, God did not prepare me because I'm anything special to come preach this message. See, a common phrase I haven't said in a while, but I have no idea what I'm doing. I really don't. But this book has a specific message. See, this book has a message of the fear of the Lord, and if I don't preach with an acknowledgement of that fear of the Lord, then I've wasted all of your time. I have. That's how important I feel like this concept is to your life. It matters. You have to have a fear of the Lord. You can't ignore it. And see, it's like a tension bridge that is built with 2 points of tension to understand this concept fully. See, how is a tension bridge held up? Oh, what bridge is that called again? Just kidding. Okay, so 2 points of tension. 2 points. The fear of the Lord, one side is judgment, the other side is mercy. Without one, the whole bridge falls. You have to have both of those pillars, both of those points to hold the bridge up. Judgment and mercy, or else the whole bridge falls down. That's a full understanding of the fear of the Lord. And see, I think there's this author, C.S. Lewis, who I think really describes God the best. This is the best way that I've seen it. He writes this series of 7 books. The most common one is talking about Aslan, the lion, the witch, and the wardrobe. But this is what it says, okay? Mr. Bieber says, Aslan is a lion, the great lion. Ooh, said Susan. I thought he was a man. Is he quite safe? I shall feel rather nervous about meeting a lion. And check out Mr. Bieber's response. Safe? Who said anything about safe? Of course he isn't safe. But he's good. He's the king, I tell you. Of course he isn't safe. He is good. He's the king, I tell you. Beautiful way to describe it. I was supposed to invite the band up, and I got too emotional and forgot, so I need you guys to come up. Sorry. C.S. Lewis, I feel like, just hits it right there. Is that God is meant to be feared. That's a concept you can't ignore. It's like meeting that lion, how when Susan met the lion, she was like, "Who is it safe?" And people wonder that, well, does God save you? Read all those stories about all the destruction, and you wonder, who is this God? But you realize, see, overall, God is good and He's the King. That's what you have to understand. Is fearing the Lord leads to life. Without the fear of the Lord, you can't understand what it means to live life with him. In fact, see, God is so good that he sent his one and only son down to the earth to take that brunt of fear. So I'm just emotional today when you think about this, when you think about what actually happens. It's been me all week. Without Jesus making that sacrifice, none of this would be happening. None of it. See, that actually happened. I think sometimes we forget about that when we're going throughout our daily lives. We forget that God is God. See, if you look back to the garden where Jesus is praying right before being taken to be crucified, he was sweating blood. That happened. Ponder on this moment. That moment of God our Savior loved us so much that he came down, separated himself from the Father, solely to take that brunt of fear, the brunt of sin, so that we may have life, so that we can be in this subservient position. Then we try to act like we don't have to be a servant. Really ponder on this moment and see what has actually happened. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of life. You have no life without an acknowledgement and understanding of the fear of the Lord. After this, right now in a moment, the ushers are going to come down and come up, and you can come get the elements. We're going to take communion today as a body of church. Once you get the elements, please hold on to them, and we'll take them together. Will you guys pray with me? Dear Father, thank you for everything you have done my whole life to lead me to this moment. Thank you for your power and your love that you lavish us with every day. Thank you for the plans you have set into motion so that we may accomplish your good, pleasing, and perfect will. Thank you for sending your Son to take that brunt of fear. God, help us today to acknowledge that you are God, that we can remember this, that it's not a 2-hour thing, it's a 24/7 feeling, acknowledgement that you are our Savior. Without you, nothing else matters. Let us honor you today, and let us be able to serve you with everything that we are. In your name I pray, amen.